I love writing about Victorian times, and so it gives me an opportunity to write about things that have always interested me, particularly the awful things like orphanages, houses of correction, workhouses, Victorian prisons. I mean, conditions were dreadful, and yet somehow or other people rose above things, took it for granted even that this was the awful sort of thing that would happen. If you certainly were unlucky enough to live on the streets, you might well be carted off and taken away and just sort of locked up, unless you are resourceful, like the girls in my book, the Runaway Girls, and they run and run and run and have all sorts of adventures. I love writing about Hetty Feather and all the different things that happened to her, right from when she was born up to about 16 years old. They mostly take place in the 1870s, 1880s. I thought it would be fun to write a time a little bit earlier, mid-Victorian times, in 1851, when the Great Exhibition was on in Hyde Park, and a huge talking point. And I thought it would give me lots of chances to write about extraordinary things, you know, wonderful, amazing things in the exhibition, really difficult, scary things about some of the people up to no good hanging around the exhibition. And I wanted my two girls, Kitty and Lucy, to get involved in this. I thought this will be my special set piece in the book. But I go through all different other Victorian places too. You even get to hang around outside Pentonville Prison. You go to a special scary junior workhouse. There's all sorts of things that I don't think I'd write about in modern times, because this would just be too sad, too scary. But somehow, because it's happening way back in the past, you can just read it with relish. Lucy and Kitty, the two girls in the Runaway Girls, actually live on the streets or hide away in deserted houses or tuck themselves under pews in churches. They have a really difficult time. Now, in this country, we still do have homeless people, but hopefully not too many children. I would like to think that anybody small who runs away would be spotted, that somebody would look after them, they would maybe be taken into care. Teenagers do run away and sometimes do stay living on the streets for a while, and that's of great concern. But certainly the problem isn't anywhere near as bad as it was in Victorian times, and we don't accept this sort of thing so much, particularly for children, whereas then there were very different ideas. It was almost as if, right, if you were born rich, you deserved to be rich. If you were born very poor, well, you just had to get by no matter how. So I found it interesting writing about this. Whereas if I were writing about homelessness now, I think it would be, certainly for children, a bit too upsetting, a bit too concerning. I think friendship is very important, but I'd like to stress that your friend doesn't have to be exactly the same as you. Lucy is very rich. She's had the advantage of a private education. She's got as many fine clothes and things to play with that any child could ever wish for. Kitty has no money at all unless she earns it for herself by begging. She has no possessions, but she's still lively and funny, and they are actually a perfect match to be friends because they complement each other. And throughout the Runaway Girls, there's a feeling that their friendship is going to develop, and hopefully they will stay friends for the rest of their lives. took me about 6 months to write The Runaway Girls. That was from getting the very first idea to thinking about it, jotting ideas down, and then getting started, then rewriting it, and then sending it off to my publishers. It might seem a long time if you're a child and you're thinking it only takes me 3 or 4 days to read a book, but believe you me, it does take longer when you're writing it. Lockdown has been a difficult time for all of us, but the one thing that hasn't changed at all is my writing routine. I like to write really early. It's about the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. And as soon as I've had my cup of coffee and seen to my pets, I actually jump back into bed in my pajamas, have my laptop there in front of me and type away. And I have about an hour when I write up to about 1,000 words. And although I write more during the day or do emails or an article or whatever, that is my special writing time. And so I am used to being at home. I am used to writing a lot of the day. So really, I'm being so lucky my life hasn't changed. But obviously, I get fidgety sometimes, and how lovely it will be to be able to go out properly again and go into whichever bookshop I fancy.